This is the K-State Radio Network and Agriculture Today. Our cattle market commentary for this week comes from a livestock economist out of Iowa State University, Lee Schulz. And we have quite an assortment of topics to take on this time around, Lee. We'll get to those in just a moment. Remind us of the trends on the cash and futures cattle trades last week. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of moving and shaking, or was there?
No, we really seen much of the trade occur on Wednesday. You've seen cash sales in the Southern Plains at 126. Nebraska was a buck better at 127. Similar range for Colorado. I think you look at the Western Corn Belt, a bit stronger there in that 127 to 130 range. I think there was a lot of incentive to get the trade done early this week, and I think that may continue. You know, we did see a bit of softening of futures and concern, I think, of a little bit of a bearish market, but also in the back of packer minds. They've had to pay up late in the week when we've seen some late week rallies. So we've seen much of that trade occur earlier in the week just because of those generalized concerns. When you look at the general sentiment of this fed cattle market, you know, I think there's some thought that maybe the spring rally has already been in, as we're starting to see a little bit more bearishness in the prices. Now, that wouldn't align with really the ramp up to the summer grilling and the cutout markets, but I think it is something to watch that we've seen this rather bearish tone, and, you know, we still got a couple weeks and months before we get into staring at that June contract.
The boxed beef market, thankfully, has shown that resiliency, and again, there was another nice surge in that market this past week.
That has been really the support in this market. Now, some of it, I think, is you looking at, we are seeing that retailers starting to make those forward purchases, and that may get a bit of a tick up in the market. If you look at some of the featuring data, you know, we've been very strong in featuring various cuts, looking at primarily rib and loin cuts. I think that's really helped support that cutout value. That's impacted packer margins. Now, packer margins started out the year, I think, below break-even levels, and as typical in that first quarter, were rather tight. With that stronger cutout value, those packer margins have improved now, and fed cattle prices really haven't come along with that boxed beef trade. So right now, packers are in pretty good shape. If we continue to see support in that cutout value, I think that could follow through into higher live animal values. Being in a good shape now is not necessarily bad for cattle feeders, as I think that could help out prices in the next couple of weeks.
When we talk about demand at this time of the year, ahead of the Easter holiday, there's always a touch of concern about a fall off in beef demand as consumers would shift to particularly pork. But if this segment can hold together and get us to that spring and summer grilling season, this will be quite a support mechanism for the market, won't it?
Definitely. Beef is going to face some stiff competition as we really look at red meat poultry supplies are really historically large. I think the one thing it has really going for it is that we've seen that price divergence come a little bit closer. As we've seen the last couple of years, beef maybe has outpriced itself in the market. We've seen beef prices come down a bit. So that's going to help out as we get into key periods of time, even Easter and then post-Easter into the summer grilling.
Back to the current state of basis in these markets, if we might, Lee. And we look back to last year where there was a significant healthy basis, cash to futures. It's a different story this year, you note.
It is. Last year, it was not uncommon for the cash trade to be $8 to $10 over the April futures, and then almost double that, 16 to 18 over the June contract. That really caused aggressive marketing of cattle, pulling cattle ahead to really capture those very strong and wide basis levels. We've very much come back to a normalized basis spread. Currently, cash prices are trading $3 to $5 over the April contract. Now, last year, really producers benefited from that strong basis levels, as well as futures prices really increased from the start of 2017 into the peaks in April and June. We've seen roughly prices a $25 increase. Now, I think as we're seeing placements of cattle now and current fed cattle prices and the futures market suggesting, I think it's important not to bet on that to occur this year, especially the rally in fed cattle prices and even the basis levels. Now, when we look at implications for these current basis levels, forward contracts, the basis that have been offered there haven't been as strong as year-ago levels. I think that has caused less producers to use that as a form of risk management because they just don't have the incentive to do it like they did last year. Futures and using hedging there, I think there is an impact definitely with the basis levels of what you're assuming basis is going to be. I've been suggesting to producers be rather conservative in your basis estimates, be surprised on the upside if basis is stronger, because I think that's going to help in identifying what your break-even prices are, being conservative there, but more than being bullish on those bases.
Now, Lee, the item that captured attention the latter part of last week has all of agriculture staying tuned into it and somewhat worried, and that is that there was the announcement by the president of possible tariffs to be imposed on steel and aluminum imports, and the agricultural markets definitely are nervous. The beef sector is no exception.
It is, and this is bearish news when you look at the impact of this, and mostly be it through the retaliatory action, if this does cause retaliation or even into the extreme case of a trade war. Now, it's important to note that nothing has happened yet, right, but the market really does loathe this uncertainty. So I think this is going to hang over the market until we have a little bit of certainty of where we're going to actually go with this, if there's going to be, in fact, tariffs and the impact of those. But when we look at the top major exporters of steel to the United States, and you could put aluminum into this category as well, they represent a huge share of U.S. beef exports as well. And so the top 10 countries are about 78% of the steel trade to the U.S., and they represent a similar percent of the U.S. beef exports to those countries. And so retaliation would likely target some of these politically and key markets for the U.S.
It's interesting that China is not one of those major steel exporting countries to the U.S., yet that seems to be the one market in regard to us delivering agricultural products that everybody's concerned about. But if you would put that into perspective, Lee.
Sure. When you look at China actually comes in for steel, they are the 11th country, major exporting country to the U.S. for steel. For aluminum, they're number 4. So they aren't maybe the headline as far as the numbers-wise, but definitely as you read the news reports, they do show up. I think a lot of it has to do with the practices that have occurred there in China to really promote steel production and put a lot of steel production on the world market. The steel industry has taken notice of that. And when you look at, just the broader trade implications, putting more steel on the world market, may it not necessarily come to the U.S., it may go to another country, and then they're going to export it to the U.S. or, export their products to the U.S. And so, I think China is a major market here, and even though it doesn't enter that top 10, it's very large impact potentially from a retaliation standpoint.
All that can really be said definitively about this right now is that the agricultural sector broadly is going to be monitoring this very closely and hoping upon hope that nothing major comes of the potential trade war that could result from this.
I think that's exactly the case. This will hang over the ag market's I think hang over other markets as well. Just to put it into a little bit of historical context here, the last time the U.S. imposed steel tariffs was in 2002, and President George W. he lifted those tariffs less than 2 years after that to avoid a trade war. So I think we do have a little bit of precedent for this. There is, I think, some understanding or reasoning why this has been suggested, but until we understand the full ramifications of this, hopefully, nothing will be definitive.
Well, the markets will be fixed on this for the coming days, probably weeks. We'll see what develops. Lastly, how do you see the market? How do you see the cattle markets shaking out this week, Lee? Thoughts?
Well, we're running pretty large slaughter levels right now. We're running almost 4% higher than year-ago levels. The one bright spot in the market is the box beef trade, but I'm not sure, given the other fundamentals in the market really causing pressure on those markets, that can really pull us out. I think right now we're hoping for a bit of a stabilization. If we can continue to push through the next couple of weeks and get into more of a peak demand situation for beef, that may be the best case scenario, just to really hold now and really help maybe set us up for a rally into April.
Very well. Always appreciate your insight, Lee, and we will catch up with you in a few weeks once more. Many thanks for your time right here.
All right, thank you.
He is out of Iowa State University, livestock economist there, Lee Schulz, among those who provide remarks on the cattle trades for us on Mondays here on Agriculture Today. For 25 years, K-State Research and Extension's Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services has been providing a no-cost, confidential place to call in and visit with an agricultural lawyer. Our experts are available to help you producers handle legal and financial issues. Explore your options and generate solutions. Call us at 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. Welcome back. You're listening to Agriculture Today. Well, this Friday, in ceremonies here in Manhattan, the 2017 class of Kansas Master Farmers, Master Farm Homemakers, will be inducted. This recognition program is co-sponsored by K-State Research and Extension and Kansas Farmer Magazine. Its legacy is long. It extends back to 1927, and it honors farm families that have excelled in production agriculture and have provided leadership in agriculture, in environmental stewardship, and in service to their communities. 6 couples are chosen annually. Here on Agriculture Today this week, in alphabetical order, we bring you their stories, starting today with a couple from north central Kansas. The Anderson family has been well entrenched as agricultural producers in far northwestern Cloud County near Jamestown ever since Robert Anderson's grandfather immigrated to that area. After a brief collegiate stint, Robert returned right back to the farm to partner with his father in the family dairy operation. Eventually, he met Charlotte, who was also from a farm near Wakefield. They married and made the transition into beef cattle production while keeping a hand in the crops side with Robert's father and brother as partners in Anderson Farms. And they've their own separate cattle operation, Red Maple Gelvy. In total, Robert and Charlotte account for 2,800 acres of crop ground, roughly half of that in wheat, and 1,500 acres of pasture in support of their 225 beef cows and 190 stockers and feeders. Robert reflects back on the origin of Anderson Farms.
My granddad actually moved over here from Denmark, and he was a blacksmith in Jamestown, so he's always been in this area. And then when he got an opportunity to buy this farm here where we live on, that's where he first bought it and moved out here, and kind of where the farming got started on one quarter, and then jumped to Dad when he got started. I think he spent a couple of years in the National Guard. He was away from home, but then he started a small dairy when he got back had to have some income. So he started milking. He started with 10 brown Swiss cows, and it kind of grew from that. And in 78, we built a little bit bigger barn, went to a double 4 herringbone, and expanded that up. We was milking around 120 cows when we got out of it, and that was in 98.
But you made it a quick transition into beef cattle, right?
Right. Yep. Just kept expanding the beef herd from that.
Let's bring Charlotte in. You were raised, well, not all that far from here, correct?
Yes. Well, I grew up on a farm as well. We had beef cattle, straight bred Herefords, and crops. And then Dad always gave us a share of cows. And then when we got married, then Dad said it's time to take your cows, and he bought out. I sold my 5 Herefords, and then that's when we bought 5 Gelbvieh, and that's when we determined what breed we were going to go into. And then we just started working from there, and now we mainly did purebred because, of course, we didn't have a lot of land to work with. Docile breed, and the neighbors didn't have any of.
And before we go any further, Charlotte, we might note that on top of your role on the farm operation, you're also an accountant with a local farm management advisory firm, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, correct. It really adds to your kind of staying up on what's happening and just being aware of the best way to keep the books and the trends and everything.
Earlier, Robert, you noted that you made the conversion from the dairy operation to a beef operation by and large back in '98. And you've grown that purposely over the years, the size of the herd?
Yeah, like I said, there's two separate herds here. Charlotte and I have a purebred herd, Gelbvieh and Balancers, and then the Anderson Farms, we have a commercial herd, and we are breeding it the same way. There's nothing up there that's papered. It's just Gelbvieh and Angus is the breed that we're using. Mm-hmm.
But it's an interesting arrangement. You have these 2 separate entities that you're involved with, one of which is cattle and crops with your father and your brother, correct?
Right.
And that's called Anderson Farms?
Right.
And then the other, the cattle operation purebred, is the Red Maple Gelbvieh.
Right.
Yeah. Does that arrangement work well in terms of having 2 separate entities like that?
It has so far. You know,
they kind of go hand in hand together, because there's a lot of things that we do for one that's, for the purebred side, we're looking at what's cutting edge, and so then we can take what we're learning from that and improving our commercial herd, because one of our big things is we like to top the market when we take calves to the sale barn or sell top quality. We take our heifers out, our commercial heifers out, and what we call our seconds are still real good heifers for just a true commercial cattleman. And so then we can look at the genetics and we can kind of be ahead of the other guy in the field.
Now, we've talked cattle so far, but there's definitely a crops element to this operation on the Anderson Farm side in particular, and rather diversified in that cropping?
Yeah, we are. We've expanded that now. We was all pretty much wheat, milo, and now we're planting more corn than we are milo, and soybeans, planting quite a bit of soybeans now, using it for a rotational crop more than anything, but we're all dry land, raise enough alfalfa, more than enough for what we need. We're close to half of it, the cropland, still wheat, corn, milo, and soybeans on the other half.
Clearly, though, with all of this going on, it is a diversified operation. And as far as navigating the economics, has that been helpful to you as the ebb and flow of crop prices or cattle prices, they tend to balance each other out, do they not?
Yeah, they do. The cattle have really helped out lately. The crops are just not very good right now. It all runs in circles. We had good crops here a few years ago, so trying to work through it again.
Among the many off-farm activities that the two of you have been engaged in, 4-H, and your kids have gone through the program, and you've been supportive in a whole variety of ways, right, Charlotte?
Oh, yeah. From the start, it's just a good, super organization. It builds our confidence, and, we've done everything from being the beef leader or the livestock leader to, right now I'm back on another term, a community leader, since there's a gap in the kids. It's such a good organization, you want everybody to see the advantage of it. But whether it's from giving a public speaking or judging or just learning a new project, you don't know where that'll take them. And you want to open all the doors you can for them.
And they've gone through those doors, it sounds.
Yeah, and the older kids, like Ryan, he and Amanda, they both have talked about how important, how much that's given them confidence in not just their public speaking, but the organization and doing the research to put their projects together. So.
And back on the ag side, you have taken leadership roles in the Gelbvieh Association at the state level?
I was on the state board for a little while. We participate a lot. Charlotte, more involved in that than I was. She was secretary for the association for 10 or 12 years.
13,
whatever it was. It was
not counting.
That's right.
So that kept us involved, kept us up on what was going on.
And we'd always go to the stock show in Denver and national convention. And you stay involved so you know what's happening.
Well, staying involved is an understatement, considering all of this. So how have the two of you managed to keep all those balls in the air, so to speak, and keep juggling?
Sometimes we wonder ourselves how we did it.
Yep.
You just, even now in the morning when Rochelle's getting all ready to go to school, it's all right, who has what today and how are we going to get it accomplished? And we start setting our summer schedule in April. We just sit down and start writing the shows we want to go to and the activities we want to participate in. And then you factor in harvest and all the farming that has to be in, and then figure out how you can make things work, and you just do it.
Well, the last thing we'd like to ask each of you is the significance of this recognition as a master farm family, what it means to you.
Well, I think it's nothing that we worked for. Because it's something that, everything we do or have done is for the promotion of ag. It's because we feel like it's important to our families, important to our community. I grew up, it was just the way you did things. And it's just quite an honor to be one of those few couples that get picked for this.
I pretty much agree with that. It caught me by a big surprise that we were even nominated for it. The stuff we do is just stuff that we want to do. It was a big surprise to me, big honor, great honor. So won't change nothing. We'll still do what we do.
Robert and Charlotte Anderson of Cloud County, Master Farm Family, class of 2017. Tomorrow you'll hear about their classmates from Washington County, Mark and Evelyn Dietrich. We'll be back in a few moments. This is Agriculture Today.
Eat today? Thank a farmer. A way to get more involved in agriculture is through 4-H and FFA. Through 4-H and FFA, we have been given multiple opportunities to grow as leaders and learn more about agriculture.
You can learn skills related to jobs, public speaking skills, and you get the opportunity to travel around the country and meet new people.
If you want more information about getting more involved in 4-H and FFA, visit them on their websites at kansasffa.org and kansas4h.org.
You're listening to Agriculture Today. I'm Jeff Wickman. Kansas 4-H has a partnership with several countries that provides 4-H members and families an opportunity to be involved in international youth exchange programs. Northwest Area 4-H Specialist Deryl Waldren says Kansas 4-H Youth Development has been participating in global citizenship exchange programs since 1948, and they're currently looking for 4-H host families for this summer.
Families are needed to host 4-H age youth and also older youth who are adults and have graduated and moved on to other programs.
What are some of the opportunities?
I'll start off with states 4-H international exchange programs. Kansas 4-H Youth Development, in cooperation with the Kansas IFI Association, works with states 4-H, as we commonly call it, S4H, and these are all the exchange programs for 4-H age youth, so those that pertain to 4-H members in Kansas. And so one of the biggest programs that people know about is the Kansas 4-H Japanese Inbound Program, where we've been hosting Japanese in Kansas since 1977. So we've just celebrated last year our 40th year of that. So we'll be hosting Japanese youth again. We're going to have 24 youth this summer as well as 3 chaperones, and there will be 15 girls and 9 boys. So we're looking for families with 4-H age kids with that gender and within plus or minus 2 years of the age of the Japanese kids. So let's say, for example, the Japanese girl is 13. We need a family in Kansas that has girl or girls between 11 and 15. It can be plus or minus 2 years. So we'll be looking for 15 girl families and 9 boy families, and then we have some chaperones that'll be coming in also. So this group will be in Kansas from July 21 through August 18, and they'll be with their families from July 23rd to August 17th. So we're looking for about a 3.5-week period where they live with families in Kansas and experience and do what the families are doing while they're with them.
And this can be anywhere in Kansas?
Anywhere in Kansas, yes. And we have the process where they apply, fill out an application. We do a background check for everyone in the family that's 18 or older, and then they're placed with a match. Each kid has interests, and some of them do have some allergies, so we have to work with families that would be willing to work with that too. So this is a huge program, and we've been doing it, as I said, since 1977. We also have some other opportunities. We'll be hosting a couple of girls from Finland this summer, and we need 2 families that would be willing to host. I think one is 16 and one is 18, who would be with that family for about 3.5 weeks also. The exact dates would be June 24th through July 22nd, I think.
What do the families need to know in terms of making this decision?
We know it's the time to start right now because we have some families that are early adopters, meaning they like to get their summers organized really quickly, and they're talking about things now, between now and spring break. We have other families that think about it in April, and probably other families that think about it in May or June. So we like to get them organized as much as we can. So the main thing is the family has to be willing to open their home to a young person from another country, be open to that. They don't have to do a lot of special things. The idea is that this person is coming to the United States, to Kansas, to learn about Kansas 4-H, Kansas host families, to see how people live here. And so they just need to do their normal thing and involve them as much as they can, engage with them. That's the main thing. We know that with the Japanese, they're younger, and their English skills when they come are not as good as when they go home. So they learn a lot of English, and that's one of the reasons that Japanese families send their kids to Kansas every summer, is because they want for them to improve their English skills.
How did this program originally begin?
Started back in 1972 when some organizations in Japan contacted Idaho and I think Washington 4-H about having some sort of exchange where Japanese kids could come to the U.S. and do this very thing, live with host families and learn English and experience the American culture and learn all about how things work in the U.S. From that, it grew to this program. We also have the flip side where U.S. 4-H members can go to Japan and other countries on a 4-week exchange also. So it's a two-way exchange. We don't send as many to Japan and other countries as they send to us in the U.S. So it's a two-way exchange and been going on a long, long time. The philosophy is world peace through understanding. If you live with families, you understand that we have far more commonalities than we do differences, and that is a good thing for the global system.
Falls within that global citizenship criteria?
Yes, and one of the things, citizenship overall, but global citizenship is a subset of citizenship, and one of the things is then exchange programs fit in nicely there, and we've been doing this for a long time, and I think we do it very well in Kansas. We've got a well-established program with safeguards in place for process, procedure, and protocols, and we follow them.
Do you have a lot of families that host year after year?
Maybe not year after year, but with the Japanese exchange, you have to have, the right gender of siblings as well as within their age range. For the other programs like the Finland program, you don't have to have an exact match with the age range and the gender as much, so it's more of a family. That's one side. The other side that we'll be hosting this summer is the IFY program, International 4-H Youth Exchange, and these are young adults, usually from 18 to 24, who come to Kansas, live with host families for about 3 weeks each. Most of them come for 3 months, though some only come for about 6 weeks, so they need from 2 to 4 host families while they're here. And we, again, place them all over Kansas. This program doesn't require there be a match, per se, within the age and the gender. And we already know for 2018 we're going to have an IFY from Switzerland, another from Germany, Estonia, and Greece. The Greek will be a 17-year-old staying for only 6 weeks in the summer. And the others, I believe, will be staying 3 months. So this is shaping up now. We're beginning to inquire and look for host families that would host these 4 people.
If somebody wants more information on this or they want to fill out the application, how do they do that?
The easiest would be to go to the Kansas 4-H website, kansas4-h.org, KANSAS 4-H.org. On the homepage, then on the right side under What's Hot, click on the link for hosting for this summer, and you can click on that, and it will take you to the specific page under Events and Activities and Global Citizenship. And there are two sections, one for hosting states 4-H programs and then one for hosting IFFIs, and they're clearly marked and delineated as to which one you need to be in. And a family could host a Japanese as well as host an IFFI, so it's not to say you couldn't do both. Now, we'd like to say that we have two coordinators that work with these programs. Rose Scott works with the Japanese exchange program, and Mary Kay Munson works with many parts of our program, including the Finnish girls coming in, and we also do an academic year-long exchange, which we're not recruiting for now, with the high school students come for 10.5 months and live with a family. So she works with those two programs. So I would be happy to put people in contact with them with more specific questions.
That's Northwest Area 4-H Specialist Deryl Waldren. Again, information about being a Kansas 4-H Youth Exchange host family is available at kansas4h.org or by contacting your local county or district extension office. For Eric Atkinson, I'm Jeff Wickman. Thanks for joining us on Agriculture Today. This is the K-State Radio Network.